to just introduce ourselves. Um, who are you? Where do you come from? Is there anything interesting that you would like to share about yourself?
Sure. Um, I'll go first. Hi everyone. I am Cindy Mazibugo. I am from KZN, born and bred, but I stay in Joburg now. And I am a PhD candidate at UJ. I am a first point. I'm a 2.1 PhD candidate. This is my first second year. And yeah, I'm happy to be here and I'm looking forward to connect with people that are like minded and share ideas and have a platform where we can think together and learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Feel free to pass to other
Oh,
people and
thank
whatever.
you. I would like to pass on to Giasiwa. I don't see other people's names. It's just Methods Lab and Methods Lab, and of course there's a Lizette, but there's like two Methods Lab. Perhaps we could have one Methods Lab.
Hey, I'm Jessiwa Ahin. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at UJ. I'm from Ghana. I don't know whether there's anything interesting about me. So I think I would leave it here and then pass on to Oratia.
Good afternoon. I am Vatile, as mentioned, and I am contemplating doing my PhD and furthering my studies. I am a Motswana girl from Rustenburg in the Northwest. I'm currently working at the Methods Lab as in the communications. So yeah, I would like to think that in this space, my goal is to broaden my horizon. Thank you. And I will pass on to Lizette.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lizette. I'm the newly temporary appointed administrator to the Methods Lab, and I'm here to learn today. And we are so optimistic that this is going to grow and be huge. We've ordered 1,000 Zoom licenses. So that is why I'm here, that we are just going to grow, and I'm here to watch and be the biggest supporter.
Is there anybody behind Methods Lab?
There's Grady.
Brady.
Just
Okay, it seems Grady is, oh,
No, I'm
he's back.
here. I'm here.
The
Hi
tech
everyone. Hope,
genius.
yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Grady, as you all know me. I'm the IT guy. I'm here to just get experience. I'm here to learn in the research space because I'm not sure if you're aware, but I'm not a researcher like you guys. So most of the time, your language just flies over my head. But I'm here for the experience. I'm here to learn. And yeah, apart from working for the Methods Lab, I also work for CyberSec, where I work for in cybersecurity. So yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you, everybody. Um, just brief introduction. I'm Jen. I'm not sure what I am. I have a background in psychology. I am deeply curious about a lot of things. I like to like to tell people that I could be your phone a friend on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Yeah, lots of random information, lots of random ideas. But hopefully in the long run, I'm able to help them connect to one another. And I am really passionate about the space that we've called the Connect. We think that it is a really, really important space within higher education, but within research. We really just are looking for people to connect to one another. We believe that connection is the way forward. It's how people can change the world. So just as we start, I just want to say that this is not a lecture. It's not a webinar. It's a space for thinking together. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to thinking together. But also just to reassure people, you don't have to have the answers here. We're not expecting people to come with, yeah, actually sometimes there is no answer, or sometimes there are multiple answers. And we're really hoping that this will grow into a space where people can share their different perspectives and different responses to ideas. You also don't have to sound a specific way. You don't have to sound clever. You don't have to use fancy academic jargon, research jargon. Although I think if Grady shared some of his tech jargon, we'd all be lost completely. Yeah, so this is we really just invite people to be here to think. Another few things just to make the space work. No one is under pressure to speak. If you're not ready to, you can pass on if someone calls on you and you don't feel able to respond. We encourage the voices of everyone in the space because we believe that is the future of how knowledge and information is created and how we build towards a thinking society. You can also change your mind. I think that is something that we really, really hope to foster, is that you're allowed to change your position on things based on new evidence. People are evolving. We're all evolving and growing and learning from one another all the time. And sometimes it's surprising who you can learn from. So we really are here to explore, not to perform. So just to get a sense of the room, in one sentence, could you share, if you feel called to do so, what has your experience of research been? What has it been in your life?
Okay. Is it okay if I start?
Please go right ahead.
Okay, so my first introduction to research was as an undergrad student, where you have to write the thesis in your final year. So what happens is you don't even get to choose your supervisor. It's chosen for you, you know. So that was the first experience. And I thought, I remember my topic even now, masculinity and femininity and the recall of gender biased words. Oh, so fancy to me at that time. And, I was still trying to, understand even what research is or why. I went to a high school and, did some mock experiment in their classrooms on I made them answer, questions on certain skills. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I was excited about research, but I was also a bit scared because I remember we had some things about our supervisor. So a group of us decided to change to another supervisor. We sent a long letter. That was one of the biggest mistakes we made because the new supervisor didn't make research so interesting to us. I remember at one point he threw our research on the floor because he asked us to meet around 5 or 6 a.m. And we were genuinely scared of him because we had heard stories about his behavior with girls. So we all go with like boys, like go with me, go with me. So he just threw it on the floor. So that was my first introduction to sort of like, okay, this world. I love the research, but I can't say that I received supervision. I practically did it on my own and then got some friends to help me with the analysis part in the stats department. So that was it. And then later on, for my master's, that was also, it was a nice experience at the beginning. It only became horrible when I was being forced to use a particular theory instead of, they were forcing me to fit the theory in. So I remember for the time of my defense, no one asked me a question because they felt I had rebelled. That was how bad my defense was. Like the chairman was so confused because it was like any questions and everybody just went shh. It was bad. But I was also determined to stand on my ground because I was like, ethically, I will not change things after the fact. So that was also a bit, it was, I remember after my defense, I wept. I did cry because, it was a horrible experience. Anyway, fast track for my PhD, I met my amazing supervisor who encouraged me to think and think beyond the discipline of psychology. So for me, I think I've seen the roles that, should I say, mentors or supervisors can make when it comes to understanding research and enjoying research. So that's what I can say about my research experience.
Mm. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Grady, I just thought maybe it would be good for you to share. What's your impression been of research? How do you understand? How have you experienced it? I think it would be nice to hear from someone who doesn't consider themselves versed in the language.
Well, let me think about it for a sec, because it's something I've never really considered. Because most of the time, I'll just be spending time working with the data I receive from researchers and not doing the research by myself. But one thing I can speak on is, well, I've done a bit of research in undergrad and my advanced, but it wasn't as hectic as how you researchers actually do it. But what I can speak on is the research I personally do for my field in terms of technical stacks and AI. And it's very interesting to always discover something new. And it's not easy to judge everything you read because sometimes you don't know what is actually legit and what is not. So you have to always look for these references. Personally, it becomes a bit frustrating because sometimes I'm also not sure what is being published out there and how it's actually going to help me. But I've read a couple of articles in my field. I've done a couple of deep diving to find things that are going to help me in terms of what I do. And yeah, my problem is always just whether the data or the information that I'm getting is legit, whether it's, how can I say, authentic and is really going to help me. But yeah, I trust researchers. So everything I get, I always try and analyze, try and look for references, try and look for other papers that relate to that topic just to make sure everything is aligned. Because I mean, finding something once and not finding it again, to me, it becomes a bit shaky. So
Mm.
yeah, basically that's that. I don't really have much to say on it because I don't do it as often, but yeah, based on the little that I've done, that's all I have.
Sounds like you actually do have quite a rich experience of research.
I wouldn't say so.
Would anybody else like to share?
Yeah, I'll go. So my first experience of research was at a tertiary hospital. I was shadowing a clinical psychologist, and I would get to see the children that he was seeing for maladjustment with type 2 diabetes. And this was a white man in a tertiary hospital in Pietermaritzburg. And I'd largely just translate between therapy sessions that were not really just adjustment sessions, adherence counseling, so nothing vulnerable or in depth in that sense. But out of those sessions, then we started working on a paper that was going to speak to the barriers and facilitators of adherence for adolescent type 2 diabetes children. And in that time, I didn't quite understand what I was doing, in the sense I didn't understand the responsibility of what I was doing. I ended up being the data collector beyond just translating within these therapy sessions. And that was my first time with research, and I enjoyed speaking to people at that time. I enjoyed speaking to the children, their caregivers, but I didn't understand that it was research. When I reflect on the age that I was and the understanding of academia that I have now, I probably would have frozen and didn't do any of those interviews. It was really, for me, just, go speak to these guys and find out what they say. And that's how I carried myself, and that's what I understood I was doing. I did not understand that I was connecting theory to lived experiences, really. And it was a great experience. It was great because I was very unassuming of what I was doing. I was just speaking to people and then going back telling these. And I remember I'd sit in these debriefing meetings and I didn't even know the dynamics. It'd be like it was an interdisciplinary group, right? So it'd be the medical doctor, the head of diabetes, it would be the dietitian, the social worker, and the clinical psychologist, and me, the second year student at varsity. Thinking back now, I'm just like, what? How did I even sit in that room, now that I understand what was happening? But yeah, it was, like a non-intimidating space. I was just there because one day I wanted to be a psychologist. And thereafter, they wrote the paper. And in hindsight, now that I know, I was not authored and I collected the data. No! So had I known, I would have my first authorship like in second year. I probably would have
Right to the editor.
Right. In fact, it must be retracted. I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, it's helpful. But as a scientist, definitely it should be retracted because they owe me an authorship. But yeah, so I exist in the space of research since then, collecting those odd data for the medical doctors that were doing their specialty or their masters in public health or whatever. Again, I did not understand what I was doing, but I did it ethically in the sense of being a human to the next person, being a human to the next human. And I didn't have a lot to do, because I remember the next data collection that I was involved in was someone was looking at the dynamics, the understanding of death from different participants. So she was in oncology, speaking to, actually, I don't even remember how she got ethics for that, but anyway, she was in oncology. She was a clinical psychologist. She had me interviewing participants that were on cancer, and how they understood their relationship with their family now that they have to talk about where they are, and how they understood the idea of death. Again, I don't know. I didn't see the proposal. Again, now that I'm a scientist myself, I'm quite curious what she said, because you can't speak to someone about impending death. And, but she was also just marveling at how people, the participants, the tertiary hospital that I was involved in was a satellite for a lot of rural areas around. So they got very interesting and dynamic people, and they varied, because they also people around the suburbs areas around the hospital that also come to the hospital. So she was just interested in how the different people from different backgrounds looked at death and perceived death. She even went as far as speaking on the race and their religion background, and how it was just contrasting. Anyway, that was my next experience. Fast forward to when I was now a scientist myself, and that's when it started crippling me. That's when research started intimidating me. That's when sitting in rooms with multiple disciplinary people started being intimidating, as opposed to different perspectives that are very interesting. So I've had differing experiences of research, and now I'm in an inspiring space that is contributing to the real questions of Africa. So it's been a ebb and flow and heap and valley situation, but it's been fulfilling all around. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no,
I know there's no right answer, but I feel like, am I right?
there's no right answer. Yeah, it's right. Well done, Sandy. Here's your
Thank
A+.
you.
Tina, do you feel like you want to share?
It's just on that side. All right. I had I just wrote some things down here. It's not so much research, because yes, I'm not a scientist. Grady, I'm not a scientist and researcher like the others. You and I are sort of in the same boat. I am in the communications and marketing field. So for me, the biggest part was or what I enjoyed most, or rather, or learned from most, was data collection. And I remember we did it and then we went to, it used to be, well, it still is Motsweding FM. It's a radio station in the Northwest. And then we also used a radio station in Pretoria as well, Yakaranda FM. So those are two very contrasting radio stations. One is Tswana speaking and one is Afrikaans speaking. And we obviously had to go into the communities to then find out how, messages are created, received, and transmitted, and, how the user experience. So going into those different communities, at the end of, the data collection period became more than just about what is it that these people are hearing, how are they receiving it, and how are they transmitting it to other people, but it became more about the people. And that's where my interest sort of shifted and adjusted a bit, to find out about the person and not just about what they listen to, basically. So it became a lot more about collecting data on, who these people are and why do they listen to a certain genre of music even. So that was the most exciting part for me, having that shift from just quantifying people to actually listening to people, not just a number, but actually listening to the person. So that was my most exciting part.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Lizette? would you like to share? What's your idea? What are your ideas about research?
Okay, so always in a supporting role, and trying to explain to my husband what's research all about. I came onto this little saying that says research is essentially being paid or getting academic credit to be a professional nosy person. And my son will tell you that there wasn't a girlfriend that I did not research and get all the clues and all the information about. So, no, maybe there's a researcher in all of us.
Yeah. I mean, I think thanks everyone for your shares. It's really interesting to hear everyone's how they got into research. I think what's also interesting is seeing how some people define themselves as researchers and others don't. And yet, just picking up on your last point, Lizette, where you said that like maybe there are researchers in all of us. I think like so often we treat research as a performance, as a part of a degree. We do it because we have to do it because it's in the degree. And yet there is something, yeah, I mean, there's something about like just being a human being, that makes us ask questions. And what's to say that what all of us are doing in our daily lives, not just in like a scientific experimental space, what's to say that that's not research? Yeah, and like it's interesting to see how also like people's understandings of research shift as they move within academia. But I think what might be like, at what point, for those of you who might have a more in-depth sense of yourself as a researcher, at what point did that shift occur from like research being a performance, being something like you were just doing because you were getting paid or because you were a student? For those of us that maybe understand research more deeply as inquiry, as thinking about, Lizette, like at what point did you start thinking that I'm doing research here, like I think we so often separate ourselves out from the world. And yeah, I mean, it's worth like pondering, Grady, what's to say that all the stuff that you're doing is it not research? At the same time as Lizette like investigating her son's girlfriend. Um, yeah, so is there, for anyone in the room, let's just take a moment to shift. Is there anything about research or research as you perceive it, that you find perplexing, difficult to understand, confusing? What doesn't make sense to you about research? Like, is there anything?
For me, it's the idea that not all research translates to interventions or tangible interventions. Like, I've learned that sometimes research happens in phases. You may ultimately want to intervene, but you unfortunately have to spend more time profiling, learning, finding the distribution of the data, um, learning the patterns of the population of the community. So such things would then because like I'm such an action orientated person, it really knocked at me for a while to truly understand that just because I've written this beautiful thesis and I said there towards the end limitations and whatnot, I said this is this is missing and this is what I'm limitation recommendations, this is what I'm recommending for the policy. And the more I ventured into research, the more time I spent sharpening my skills or tools, I learned that every thesis and every article has that portion. And it doesn't always translate to the policymaker picking it up and applying my recommendation. That aspect of complexity and limits within itself of research as a inquiry and as a tool to intervene in the world has been something that I'm still trying to deal with, which also has led me to work for spaces like Methods Lab, because that policy maker must, that recommendation needs to be applied to a policy. And in the meantime, before I find the policy, it will be applied to Methods Lab.
Your experimental playground. Anyone else? Are there things about research that you just don't understand, or that like what makes you not a researcher? So let's ask that question. So like, Grady, what makes you not a researcher? I'm picking on you, and you feel free to pass if you don't feel comfortable responding, but you said I'm not like you guys, and Oratile, you also said that, but you were a little bit more hesitant. So perhaps what makes you not a researcher?
Well, I think one aspect that I always have in my mind with research is always uncertainty. It's like, it's not like doing an assignment where there's one correct answer. There are so many answers. You don't know which one is which. Sometimes things are just not always clear. And I don't think I've reached that level where my mind is able to dig through all those things to clearly understand and make sense of, that certain research, I don't know, paper or article, whatever that it is. So you always get unexpected results. It's very different because we might say that, but you can get the same unexpected results when you're working with data and code. But it's very different for me because the approach in which these two things are being done is different. I understand the logic when I'm dealing with code, and when I get a result, I might not have, I didn't expect that result, but I know how to come back from it and counter it. But with research, you need very, very strong evidence. I feel like you end up with more questions than answers. So yeah, because I lived with someone who did research for a while. One of my family members, actually for a very long time. And yeah, the conversations I had with them, the times I sat with them when they were actually doing their work, it was very interesting, but it was something I never grasped. I never really understood, even though we would be in the same place every day. I was never able to catch on. So I think over time, I also just lost a bit of interest. And yeah, there was always uncertainty. He found himself asking many questions and never really getting an answer. So I was like, nah.
Yeah. Just like, how do you sit with that uncertainty?
How do
to
I?
say, sit with that uncertainty, like what, but at the same time, what makes the things that you do where you like write up some code and then plug it in and then it doesn't give you the result that you expect, and then you go back to it, what makes that not research? What makes it like not a process of inquiry?
But coming to think of it, it's like Lizette said, now that I'm thinking of it, it's probably research. Yeah, it is research. Maybe I just never I never thought of it in that way. Also, I think it was just a thing of interest because as we start with academics and you're on this journey, when you're thinking of research, we think something totally different. Yeah, we're in a space where you're like, nah, I'm doing my master's now, I'm doing my research. I'm doing my PhD now, I'm doing my research. But when you're in undergrad, you don't really see the research you're doing as research. You just see it as, I don't know, looking for answers for assessments or online tests or something like that. So it actually does make sense. So I think after today, I can actually call myself a researcher. Because I do look for evidence based on the things that I do, the technical things that I do. But I've just never thought of it as research because I don't know.
So you just never thought of it as research. So if it's not published or it's not for a PhD, as part of a PhD where you're actually doing a proposal or
Yeah.
a master's or whatever, then the way in which we all tend to think is that that's not research.
Yep.
All right, Tila, go ahead.
You were right, Jane, in saying I was a bit hesitant because I feel like I'm borderline. I felt like literally a minute ago I was borderline researcher, but taking what Grady's saying and what Lizette was saying, that we're actually all researchers. And I'm thinking, I was thinking about the answer to your question, and for me, research is about uncovering. I'm going to use words just to, I drop words. That's how my mind works. Uncovering, venturing into spaces that were not really ventured into, or exceeding what was done. And accepting that the work that you do it's infinite. It will never just end with you or end with your research. That's why we read papers from other authors in order to improve the current state, or to improve your thesis or your topic or your research. So I think for me, the biggest fear in saying I am a researcher is the fear that it will not be, or my work will not be adequate. You're a researcher, you call yourself a researcher, but it only got up to a certain level. So inadequacy, and it's a contrast, inadequacy and knowing that, work is infinite, research is infinite, but there's that fear of inadequacy when it comes to that.
Inadequacy according to what? Like
realizing that I will not and I cannot, basically, I think, I don't know how to put it, get to the other side, literally start and finish. I have my start and finish, I have my academic start and finish, but in the world, there is no start and finish, there is no finish. So not being in that finish line is really scary. And I said it in one other platform that what scares me the most and what is really daunting for me is writing something, spending all this time and, doing all this research, and then your paper ends up cited by one or two people. And it's just there.
By your mother.
So it's yeah, I think, maybe I need to change my major to psychology, because I want to do it all, but I need to realize, my limitations. Cited by yeah, Jesua is right. Yeah, she just said cited by your mom in the comment section. That's it. Your paper being held around by your family saying, my sister and my brother did this paper, accomplished this, and it actually does not have an impact in the greater green earth. Yeah.
So in order for something to be considered research, I think there's often the perception that it has to be cited, that it has to be published, that it has to be translated into some kind of like what we see as real action. So like real intervention, like what Cindy was talking about. And that might be true, but at the same time, like, is Grady not doing research, thinking, and experimenting when he's running his code every day? Is Lizette not doing research on her? Let me stop picking on Lizette's poor son and her maternal instincts. But like, yeah, what if like, a parent looking up symptoms of something, like, is that not research? A parent who's concerned about their child. So I think like there seems to be a thread in what we've been discussing in this space. You want to say?
Yes, Jane. Now when you said, the parent researching the medicine or the sickness of the child, symptoms and grading and coding. Should we, or do you think, now I'm asking a question, do you think there's a misconception behind the word researcher or the title researcher?
Well,
to
is
the
there?
group? And if so, is it not time to demystify it?
Is it not?
To the channel. Yeah, so those are my two questions.
And is it?
I think coming back again to, working with researchers, for me, when I hear a researcher, all my life it was somebody chasing money, chasing funding, chasing, that rating. And I must admit, since I've come to this department, it's like it's different. There's a genuineness. I never used to speak about my work. And I find myself speaking to my family about what's happening in this department. And really, I don't know much. And that's why I'm jumping on these things to get more information. But for me, before, a researcher was somebody chasing exactly what I'm saying, funding, money. But this department is they are chasing a genuineness of making a difference, of finding what it is to find there and to be a solution.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, so like, what if research is not just about applying a scientific method and about the outputs, the publications, or even the like interventions that are designed? Like, what is it? Yeah, what if it's about learning to think? Like learning how to ask questions, how to make sense of the world, how to apply your knowledge. I mean, like I did some work with some people, psychiatry registrars, and they also have this distinction. They're like, I'm only doing this because I need to get this research paper published, or I need to finish this thesis so that I can become a psychiatrist because it's part of the degree. So, I mean, I think so. What I would hope is that we can start to reframe and demystify, to move away from research as like performance, as like meeting some checklist, as some output. But yeah, just as a form of inquiry, of being curious, of simply because you don't have a PhD doesn't mean you can't engage with information, you can't produce knowledge. Yeah, I mean, I think like these are not individual experiences. They're like structural issues that, I mean, I know like Artile, you said maybe you must go study psychology, but even in psychology, if you're doing the applied aspect of psychology, so the clinical counseling, they will tell you just do the thesis because it is just part of the degree. And yeah, I don't know. Like for me, I feel like, but that's my own issue of like feeling it almost disrespects the nature of what you might produce. And I suppose there are spaces for like just sticking the thing in ChatGPT and getting it to produce it. But what are we really chasing here? Are we like trying to pursue a thinking society? Are we challenging the structures that are pushing, researchers' output as performance, as opposed to meaningful thinking and making a difference in the world? So just before we close, what would you say is one question that you're leaving with today? Any thoughts?
Maybe how, we've talked about research and how, in a way, if I remember Cindy's even experience, the joy and the confidence with which she did research now became a bit restrictive after learning all the, in quotes, rules of research. So that no matter the work that Grady is doing, he doesn't, because of those rules and structure of what it means to be a researcher, he doesn't even see himself as a researcher when he's doing everything that a researcher does. So for me, I think the question I'm going to go away with, how do I make sure that I don't I thrive maybe both within and without the rules. Because the rules are, of course, they're important when it comes to the ethics part and everything, because we want to protect communities that we go to and everything. But how do I make sure that that doesn't limit me to, let's say, steal the joy from let's say, an undergrad? How do I make an undergrad understand that everything that you're doing, when you're even reviewing to check which medicine or whatever you want to buy, that's research. How do I make them? So I think that's what I'm going to sort of think about, especially also knowing that I'm very junior when it comes to research. And there are people who still police it. You cannot.
The postdoc says she's junior.
You are too junior. You're not supposed to be doing these things. How do I make sure that I'm able to both exist within and outside the system? So that's the question that I'm going away with.
Any other thoughts?
I just put it in the chat just before Jessie was speaking. What does it mean to be a researcher? That's the question that now this last hour has put in my mind. Yeah.
Any other last thoughts?
I think I have something to say. So it was very insightful, and something that came up to me was, how can I become more comfortable, with not having the right answers, but still learning something valuable? Because I come here not knowing the jargons the researchers would use, and it might sometimes feel like the answer you're giving does not even relate to the question, because you probably didn't capture the question correctly, because we are using research terms. But yeah, I think just as Jessie was said, I'm probably doing everything a researcher is doing, but not knowing, because the standards that have been placed around research. So yeah.
Any other last thoughts?
Yes, I would like to say I am going to go away with a comforting knowledge to know that there are people that are looking to think with one another, which is comforting, considering how lonely research is, and how researchers are people that are seldom comfortable with sharing that they don't think they are researchers while they are doing research every day. Thank you so much.
Anyone else with any?
I think we're out of time.
Okay. Thank you so much to everybody for being here. Just to say, it took me a very long time to be able to say that I'm a research psychologist. Yeah, I think it is a question that we're going to have to grapple with. I don't think there is an answer. And this is really just the starting point. So you're welcome to share ideas for other things you would like to explore further in this space. My thought was to go with looking at something like, why is thinking difficult? Why is that like sitting with that confusion and uncertainty? Like, why is it part of the process? But thank you to everybody for being willing to think together today.
Thank you for doing a great job hosting it. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
creating the space for us, Jen.
Goodbye.
It was
See you next
wonderful.
week.
See you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Is
Bye.
it weekly?
Bye.
Is it weekly?
Next week, Wednesday.
Yeah, it's weekly.
It's weekly.
So we
Yeah.
had it weekly, but
We can change
again,
it.
No, we
it's
have it
all-
weekly. Done.
Okay, wait.
Thank
we're gonna have it
Thank you,
weekly.
thank you.
Should-
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm out.
Cindy, I'm not gonna get out of it.
No, we have it weekly. Brilliant idea. Well done, Jen. Well done.